You are looking live at Launch Pad 6, Site 31 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan in the Central Asian Desert, where a Soyuz 2.1a booster stands fully fueled, ready to launch just 25 minutes, 40 seconds from now to send an uncrewed Progress 84 cargo ship to the International Space Station on a delivery run of 2.7 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the Expedition 69 crew aboard the Orbital outpost. Good morning from Mission Control in Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where flight controllers are standing by for the launch of the Progress 84. That'll put that uncrewed cargo ship on a fast-track two-orbit journey to reach the International Space Station for an automated docking at 11:20 a.m. Central Time, 12:20 p.m. Eastern Time, after just 2 orbits of the Earth. At the time of launch, coming up at 7:56 and 7 seconds Central Time, 8:56 and 7 seconds Eastern Time, the International Space Station will be flying over southwestern Kazakhstan, west of the launch site, at an altitude of about 260 statute miles. You can see liquid oxygen venting from the first stage of the Soyuz 2.1a booster. All of the preparations have gone extremely well. The rocket was rolled out to the launch pad in Baikonur from its integration building on Sunday, was hydraulically lifted to its vertical position, where technicians began the process of hooking up fuel lines, electrical lines, and data lines for the final days of processing of this uncrewed Progress resupply ship. It is 85 degrees Fahrenheit, mostly sunny at the launch site today. Once the Progress reaches its preliminary orbit 8 minutes and 45 seconds after launch, that will be the point of spacecraft separation from the third stage, or the upper stage, of the Soyuz 2.1a booster. And then the Progress will go through a series of automated rendezvous maneuvers, or engine firings, to initially raise its altitude to match that of the International Space Station, and then fine-tune its path to the space station for the docking to the Poisk module on the space-facing, or zenith, side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. The flight control team here in Houston is beginning a shift handover. The Orbit 2 team coming on console to watch over the shoulders of the Russian flight control team, which is in control of all of the operations today for both launch as well as the rendezvous and docking. There's a view from a balcony camera at the Russian Control Center in Korolyov on the outskirts of Moscow. The blockhouse down at Baikonur, where the launch control operations are taking place, is populated by a team of launch technicians. They will be supervising the launch itself and, of course, the dynamic phase of flight as the Soyuz booster arcs out to the northeast from the launch pad and begins its 8-minute, 45-second journey to its preliminary orbit to deliver the Progress resupply ship en route to the International Space Station. The Progress is loaded with some 2.7 tons of cargo. That breaks down to 1,080 pounds of propellant, 88 pounds of nitrogen, 926 pounds of water, and 3,399 pounds of dry cargo in the form of spare parts and other supplies for the Expedition 69 crew. The Expedition 69 crew on board the station is commanded by Roscosmos cosmonaut Sergei Prokopyev, along with his fellow cosmonauts Andrei Fedyaev and Dmitry Petelin. NASA astronauts Steve Bowen, Woody Hoberg, and Frank Rubio are on board the station as part of the Expedition 69 crew. Rounding out that 7-man crew is United Arab Emirates astronaut Sultan Al-Niyati. They, of course, were joined 2 days ago by the 4 crew members of the Axiom 2, the private astronaut crew that launched from the Kennedy Space Center on a Crew Dragon Freedom spacecraft from Launch Pad 39A back on Sunday, arriving at the station on Monday morning, for about 48 hours ago, commanded by former NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson, along with her crewmates, the pilot John Schaffner, and Saudi astronauts Ali Al-Karni and Rihanna Barnawi, who are well into their research and outreach activities that will culminate with their scheduled departure from the station on that Crew Dragon Freedom next Tuesday. Back on the launch pad at Baikonur, everything continuing to go very well. Some of the milestones that you'll be hearing us call out in the final 20 minutes prior to launch will include launch control reporting that the range at Baikonur is clear and that the Soyuz booster is ready to begin its journey. Recorders on board the spacecraft will begin recording data at about the T-minus 4-minute mark. About 2 minutes and 45 seconds prior to launch, the first stage booster tanks will be pressurized for flight, helping to optimize the flow of fuel and helping to add structural support to the rocket. That ground propellant feed will be terminated about 90 seconds before liftoff. The Soyuz rocket will go on internal power about 1 minute before launch, and then you see buttressed up against the rocket two umbilicals, basically two towers. The first will retract at about 35 seconds before launch. The second of those two umbilicals will retract about 15 seconds before launch, initiating the launch sequence start commanding that will result in engine start, the turbo pumps coming up to flight speed, and then the hold down posts being retracted to allow the Soyuz to lift off and begin its journey to the International Space Station. The Progress 84 launch to deliver the supplies to the International Space Station comes in the midst of a flurry of activity on board the International Outpost. As mentioned, the Axiom 2 crew, the private astronaut crew that arrived on the station on Monday, they're in the midst of all of their research and outreach activities on board. They are scheduled to depart next Tuesday for the journey back home and a splashdown in their Crew Dragon spacecraft off the coast of Florida. Their departure will open up the Zenith or space-facing port on the Harmony module for the subsequent launch of the SpaceX 28 Cargo Dragon mission that will deliver to the station the next pair of IROSA or ISS rollout solar arrays that will be installed during a pair of spacewalks next month by Steve Bowen and Woody Hoberg on the starboard truss of the station to augment power to the 1A and 1B power channels for the International Space Station. So one after the other, the traffic pattern at the space station is very full, but today is the next step in the continuing saga of the International Space Station, the launch of this uncrewed 84 Progress resupply ship to the International Space Station. Again, this is a quick two-orbit journey. The orbital mechanics selecting this day for launch to precisely align the International Space Station in the right corridor, the right path for the Progress to reach in about 3 hours and change, or just 2 orbits of the Earth, for an automated docking to the Poisk module of the International Space Station. Once docking has been completed and a hard mate is formed once the hooks are closed between the Progress and the docking port at Poisk, then leak checks will be conducted by cosmonauts Sergei Prokopyev and Dmitry Petelin to make sure we have an airtight seal at the docking interface. And as that occurs, Prokopyev and Petelin then will be free to open up the hatches between the station and the Progress vehicle that will enable them to begin to unload some of the more time-critical cargo items being carried to orbit today on board the Progress resupply ship. Some of the Ascent milestones that are typical for a Soyuz launch of either an uncrewed Progress resupply vehicle or a crewed Soyuz spacecraft. The first stage engines will shut down and the strap-on boosters will be jettisoned about 1 minute and 58 seconds after launch. The second stage engines will fire up and will continue the Soyuz booster's journey uphill. About 2 minutes and 41 seconds after launch, the fairing that encapsulates the Progress vehicle at the top of the stack will be jettisoned. Second stage shutdown and jettisoning occurs at about the 4 minute 47 second mark into the journey, followed by third stage ignition and the third stage shutdown and preliminary orbital insertion and spacecraft separation occurring about 8 minutes and 45 seconds after launch. Those are the key milestones on the road uphill for the Soyuz booster to deliver the Progress resupply ship into its initial orbit. At the blockhouse in Baikonur, the launch controllers are reporting their level of readiness for launch, and everything is in readiness. The weather is excellent, mostly clear skies for the ascent of the Soyuz booster today. Approaching the T-minus 14 minute mark in the countdown. The International Space Station and its 11 occupants moving from southwest to northeast across Central Africa at the moment. Again, will be over southwestern Kazakhstan, almost due west from the launch site at the time of liftoff, just 13 minutes 45 seconds from now. We are approaching the T-minus 12 minute mark in the countdown. About 5 minutes from now, the launch conductor in Baikonur will insert a launch key into a console at the launch bunker. That will transition the Progress and the Soyuz 2.1a booster into the launch sequence into what is called automatic mode. Once again, the countdown is proceeding very smoothly as we approach the T-minus 10-minute mark. Again, launch time is scheduled at 7:56 and 7 seconds Central Time, 8:56 and 7 seconds a.m. Eastern Time, which is 5:56 p.m. at the launch site in Baikonur. Several hours ago, the Russian State Commission met at Baikonur to review launch preparations. It was a very brief meeting, and all of the launch managers and the Roscosmos managers gave their approval to fuel the vehicle, which began about 4 hours or so ago. The tanking meeting is usually pro forma, but in this case, all of the activities were said to be in readiness for the launch of this cargo ship and 2.7 tons of supplies for the International Space Station's Expedition 69 crew. We're coming up on the T-minus 8-minute 30-second mark. And mark, T-minus 8 minutes 30 seconds until launch. The countdown proceeding on track, inside 7.5 minutes until launch. T-minus 7 minutes and counting. Launch key now inserted in the launch bunker. The launch sequence being transitioned into automatic mode. The blockhouse in Baikonur, launch controllers reporting the range is clear, the Soyuz ready to begin its journey. Again, this will be 8 minutes and 45 seconds of powered flight on the three-stage Soyuz 2.1a booster to deliver the uncrewed Progress resupply ship into its preliminary orbit. Once a spacecraft separation occurs, the command will be issued to have the Progress unfurl its solar arrays and navigational antennas to complete the first phase of the dynamic flight and the two-orbit journey to reach the International Space Station for its automated docking later this morning. Inside 5 minutes to launch. The purging of the fuel lines and other elements of the rocket engines currently underway. This purging is conducted with nitrogen that helps to fireproof the engines by removing vapors of fuel and oxidizer. The next step will be the booster tank on the first stage being pressurized for flight. T-minus 3 minutes, 30 seconds until launch. T-minus 3 minutes and counting. Booster tank pressurization has begun. Coming up on the 2-minute mark in the countdown, the ground propellant feed will be terminated. T-minus 2 minutes and counting. Everything in order for an on-time launch at 7:56 and 7 seconds a.m. Central Time. The Soyuz 2.1a booster now on internal power. T-minus 1 minute. Just a few seconds from now, that first umbilical tower will retract from the side of the vehicle. First umbilical has retracted. T-minus 25 seconds and counting, waiting for the second umbilical to retract to begin auto sequence start. There is the second umbilical has retracted, launch sequence initiated. We have engine start. Engines coming up to full throttle. The launch command initiated. And liftoff. Liftoff of the 84th Progress resupply ship to the International Space Station. All first stage engines are reported operating normally. The booster arcing out to the northeast, beginning its fast-track 2-orbit journey to reach the orbital outpost. 35 seconds into the flight, all engine performance reported normal. Roll program has been completed. The vehicle reported to be in stable shape. We'll be coming up on the period of maximum dynamic pressure on the Soyuz booster just a few seconds from now. 1 minute, 8 seconds into the flight. Flight is reported to be nominal by the blockhouse in Baikonur. All parameters, yaw, pitch and roll, all reported to be nominal. 1 minute, 40 seconds into the flight. Coming up on the 2-minute mark into the flight. We'll be standing by for first stage shutdown and booster separation. First stage separation confirmed. The vehicle reported to be in stable shape, good shape, second stage engine up and running. 2 minutes, 30 seconds into the flight. About 6.5 minutes of powered flight remaining. Second stage engine performing normal, according to the blockhouse in Baikonur. Coming up on the 3-minute mark into the flight, all parameters reported to be nominal. All structural parameters reported to be nominal. 3 minutes, 15 seconds into the flight. 5.5 minutes of powered flight remaining. And we have fairing jettison on time. The Soyuz booster traveling just over 5,200 miles per hour. Altitude 49 miles. Downrange distance 72 miles from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Flight reported to be nominal, almost 4 minutes in. Good reports from the blockhouse in Baikonur. This view now from a camera on the 3rd stage of the Soyuz booster. 4 minutes, 15 seconds into the flight. 4.5 minutes of powered flight remaining. We're coming up on second stage engine shutdown and separation. And second stage shutdown is confirmed. That view of the aft skirt being jettisoned. 5 minutes, 15 seconds into the flight, everything reported to be nominal. Five minutes, 35 seconds into the flight, just over 3 minutes of powered flight remaining. Launch occurring on time at 7:56 and 7 seconds a.m. Central Time, which was 5:56 p.m. at the launch site in Baikonur. Passing 6 minutes into the flight. Engine performance nominal. Structural parameters all in line. Good reports from the blockhouse in Baikonur. At the time of third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation, the flight control team at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow will take over control of the Progress's journey to the International Space Station. Six minutes, 52 seconds into the flight. Just under 2 minutes of powered flight remaining. Yaw, pitch and roll reported to be nominal. Good stability, good parameters on the Soyuz booster. Third stage engine performance is nominal, 7 minutes, 30 seconds into the flight. Just a little over 1 minute of powered flight remaining. Everything remains in good shape. Good reports from the blockhouse in Baikonur. Eight minutes into the flight. So far, so good. Everything by the book. Less than a minute of powered flight remaining. Coming up on the 8.5 minute mark into the flight. Again, all engine parameters and structural parameters are normal. We are standing by for third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation. Third stage shutdown confirmed, and third stage separation. Now the command will be issued for the Progress to unfurl its solar arrays and navigational antennas. And the solar arrays and the navigational antennas have all deployed normally. So the Progress is now in its preliminary orbit after a flawless ascent and climb to orbit after its launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. This is a two-orbit journey that will last less than 3.5 hours, with docking to the Poisk module scheduled at 11:20 a.m. Central Time, 12:20 p.m. Eastern Time. This view now from the external cross-haired engineering camera on the Progress vehicle, our first view from Progress, following its flawless ascent into its preliminary orbit. The quick rendezvous of two orbits to the International Space Station will see a engine firing in about 25 minutes. That's called the DV1, or Delta Velocity 1 burn, that begins the heart of the automated rendezvous by the Progress to the International Space Station. But for now, a flawless ascent and arrival on orbit, the preliminary orbit for the Progress vehicle. So that'll wrap up our coverage of the launch. We will be back on the air at 10:30 a.m. Central Time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time for rendezvous and docking coverage, with docking scheduled at 11:20 a.m. Central Time, 12:20 p.m. Eastern Time. For now, a great start to the journey of Progress 84, the uncrewed resupply ship heading to the International Space Station. We'll see you back in a few hours. For now, this is Mission Control Houston.